Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for middle market companies, their investors, and executive teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, February 9th, 2026, and we will start by congratulating the Seattle Seahawks on their Super Bowl victory yesterday and hope that they get a chance to rest, recover, and enjoy being the world champions before their parade, which will no doubt be held in the rain because Seattle. Congratulations, everybody. Enjoy it while it lasts. This week, we've got a couple of stories about velocity and then a reminder of the need to think through what contingency mode means in your day-to-day operations. There was a story that broke late last week about a ransomware attack at US-based payments provider BridgePay Networks. Their own status page tells quite a story where they started posting these automated service degradation notices for one part of their infrastructure at 3:29 a.m. on Friday morning. Within a half hour, two others also appeared listed as degraded, and then they were hard down about 2 hours from the first sign of disruption. By 6:34 in the morning Eastern Time, just 3 hours after the initial signs, the company posted that they are, quote, currently experiencing a system-wide service disruption. We have identified that this outage is related to a cybersecurity incident and are actively investigating with our internal teams and external specialists, including the FBI, unquote. As of this morning on the 9th, they do not have an update on their status page or an ETA for returning to service, but they have noted that it's ransomware explicitly, which I think we should give them some credit for. They also say, quote, no card data was compromised and any file that may have been accessed was encrypted, end quote, which of course would be a PCI requirement, thankfully in their context, but shows some of the value of encryption at rest. Although that said, if you have an account that has permissions to decrypt or access the keys for those files, that might be not as strong of a control as you would imagine. Implementation details matter, but they also note that they, quote, remain committed to transparent communication, unquote, moving forward. So we will also keep an eye on that as this incident progresses. But the takeaway for us here as defenders, I think there's a few things, three that we should really focus on. First, attacks happen fast and they don't always happen during business hours. It's not uncommon for me to encounter a client who has a small team responsible for security monitoring and response. And even if you've got people across different geographies or someone with a pager duty style rotation, you are not going to be a match against a ransomware crew who is moving through your environment at 3 a.m. if you have to wake up and get started. The second piece is early intervention reduces blast radius. Like this previous point, you've got to move fast before this thing spreads. So fast, like automatic fast, like no human intervention required fast. So if you don't have auto isolation playbooks built out for both your endpoints and servers that leverage your EDR technology, please put some effort into that because it does pay real dividends. And then third, have backups and a tested restoration plan. This company is going into their fourth full day of the incident and does not even have an ETA. This tells me that they likely either didn't have great backups, didn't have a great plan or practice on restoring from them, or both. All of these elements are within our control and will help us defend against ransomware attacks, hardware failures, AWS outages, and any number of other realistic things that we are likely to encounter as we operate in 2026. Please do the basics because they are important and they will help you when the chips are down. You cannot do them when things have already gone boom. The other story worth flagging this week is an announcement from Anthropic about some capabilities that their new Opus 4.6 model has achieved, namely identifying what they say as, quote, more than 500 previously unknown high-severity security flaws in open-source libraries with little to no prompting, unquote. So even if that's a bit of marketing inflation or fluff, I do think there's real value in being able to find and fix these things before attackers do. But that said, we've also created now this race condition where this technology, these AI tools, can be used by threat actors to find and exploit these holes as well. And what we need to do then is accelerate not only our vulnerability identification capabilities, but our ability to patch and push these into production. So can AI help with this? Yes, of course it can. But we also still need to test, confirm that there's no breaking changes, roll it through our existing CI/CD pipeline, and then push it out into production. So while we've got some powerful tools at our disposal, we're also still only humans. And I think that is quickly becoming the story of 2026, or being in tech and cyber these days. I don't have any good answers, but I'm really starting to see this clearly, that the human versus the machine dichotomy is very front and center. From a fundraising perspective, another week with modest numbers totaling only $8.7 billion in newly committed capital. only. I did catch, though, an article about a PE fund in London on Capita who is winding down after 20 years in operations. We heard tell towards the end of the year with some predictions last year in 2025 that many firms were raising their last fund but just hadn't realized it yet. Maybe this is a one-off. Maybe this is the tip of the iceberg. We will just have to wait and see, but it is interesting to see these things happening now in the wild here only a month into 2026. A reminder that you can find links to all of the articles we covered in the comments section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.